name is Elon Musk. He saved free speech. Let me tell you, we have a new star. A star is born, Elon.
What
get things
gives
done.
you satisfaction?
Doing something useful for other people that I like doing.
Elon Musk, the richest man in the world, with his hand in every place possible from politics and social media to car manufacturing, AI, and space travel. Elon Musk really is the real-life version of Tony Stark. It hasn't always been smooth sailing for him, though, from dropping out of college with debt and having to sleep in his office.
I didn't have any money. In fact, I had negative money. I had huge student debts. So, in fact, I couldn't afford a place to stay and an office. So I rented an office instead, because I got a cheaper office than I could get a place to stay, and then I just sort of slept on the futon.
And being days away from bankruptcy in 2008.
At the end of 2008, we were only a few days from bankruptcy. It was literally 2 days, or 3 days maybe.
To building rockets and self-driving cars and becoming the richest man in the world and buying a social media company to make his power and his reach even stronger. This is how Elon Musk has become the most powerful man in the world. Our story begins in Pretoria, South Africa. When Elon was just 10 years old, he taught himself how to code. He was then able to create a video game at the age of 12 called Blastar, which is very similar to the extremely popular game Space Invaders. He was able to sell the game for $500. No one knew at the time that this would be the start of the greatest entrepreneur to ever live. At 17, Elon made the big decision to move to North America. He left with $2,000, a backpack, and a suitcase full of books, dropped out of Stanford after only 2 days at the age of 24, and created an internet startup with his brother Kimball and his friend Greg, which would turn out to be one of the greatest decisions he would ever make in his entire life.
How old were you when you started this company, or what became this company?
23.
Take us back to when you really started all of this.
Well, that was the summer of '95.
Elon started Zip2 with his brother Kimball and his friend Greg Curie in the summer of 1995. They were so broke at the time that they could only afford a $200 a month office and not a place to live. So he was sleeping on the futon mattress in there and showering at the YMCA.
We found that an office was actually cheaper than an apartment in Silicon Valley. So we got this dinky little office that had a leaky roof. It was just the nastiest place you can imagine.
And you lived in it too?
And I lived in it too and showered at the YMCA. This lasted for about 3 or 4 months. And the reason we chose this office, in addition to it being really cheap, was that there was an internet service provider on the floor below. So we were able to get really cheap internet access by drilling a hole in the floor and connecting to their server directly.
In 1999, after 4 years of countless hours of work, Zip2 was sold to Compaq for $300 million in cash. Musk himself walked away with $22 million for his efforts. He did splurge a little bit, immediately buying a $1 million McLaren F1, but what he said was more important to him was building more companies. Little did he know he was just getting started.
I could go and buy one of the islands in the Bahamas and turn it into my personal fiefdom. I'm much more interested in trying to build and create a new company.
Musk waited no time at all. He founded X.com just a couple of months after selling Zip2 with the goal of revolutionizing banking.
Post the sale, in fact immediately post the sale, I didn't really take any time off. I was trying to think of where were the opportunities this is in early '99, where the opportunities remained in the internet. And it seemed to me that there hadn't been a lot of innovation in the financial services sector. One of the things was to combine all of somebody's financial services needs into one website, so you could have banking, brokerage, insurance, and all sorts of things in one place. And that was actually quite a difficult problem to solve. But we solved most of the issues associated with that. And then we had a little feature, which took us about a day. That was the ability to email money from one customer to another. And whenever we demonstrate these two sets of features, we'd say, well, this is a feature that took us a lot of effort to do. And look how you can see your bank statement and your mutual funds and your insurance and all that. It's all on one page, and look how convenient that is. And people go, well, ho-hum. And then we'd say, and by the way, we have this feature where you can enter somebody's email address and transfers funds. And they go, wow.
X.com's email money transfer system was an instant hit, so they began to focus their resources just into that. And in the year 2000, they merged with Confinity to form PayPal, as you probably know it today, with Elon being appointed as the CEO. Though it wasn't all smooth sailing from here. Shortly after, while on vacation to Australia, Elon was ousted as the CEO in an orchestrated coup by co-founder Peter Thiel, who then took over as CEO.
Right. So you were CEO of the company for most of 2000, I think, and you went...
And 99, yeah.
And 99.
So like 2 years, basically.
PayPal merged, Elon's company merged with another company.
Cook, yeah.
It became PayPal.
Right.
He was running the company. He went on an investment raising trip, and when he got back, what happened?
I think it's not a good idea to leave the office when there are like a lot of major things underway which are causing people a great deal of stress.
Yeah.
But it was a combination of needing to raise money, and I'd gotten married earlier that year and not had any vacation or honeymoon or anything, so it was kind of a combined financing trip / honeymoon.
Yeah.
And and anyway, but away for 2 weeks, and there was just so much. There was just a lot of worry, and that caused the management team to decide that I wasn't the right guy to run the company, and so the board was like, geez, what do we do? So basically, I could have fought it really hard, but instead I said, rather than fight it at this critical time, best to sort of concede.
Although it wouldn't really matter much, as Elon Musk always wins in the end, and eBay would ultimately purchase PayPal for $1.5 billion in 2002, and Elon Musk would make a further $165 million on the purchase.
He asked me what I was going to do after PayPal, and I thought, well, I was wondering, like, I'd like to get involved in space, but I just didn't think there was anything I could do as an individual, but I was curious as to when NASA would be sending a team to Mars, because that was always going to be the thing to do after the moon. I figured that there'd be some plan, and I'd just go to the website and I could read the schedule. And
then Mars occurs.
Oh yeah, it's like, okay, 2017, good, okay. But actually there wasn't anything on the website. But I thought, well, if I could do something that would galvanize public interest, and then that public interest would translate to additional appropriations for NASA and increase their budget, then maybe they could do it. So I tried to figure out how to do this with the proceeds that I had from PayPal, and I was able to figure out how to get the cost of the spacecraft down and the communications and the little greenhouse and everything. But the one thing I couldn't compress was the cost to launch, because there are only a few options, and the U.S. options were way too expensive. And so I ended up going to Russia 3 times to try to buy the biggest ICBM in the Russian nuclear fleet. So that's when I said, okay, well, is there some way to affect the cost of space transport? Just try to understand, is there something fundamentally super expensive about rockets, or can the cost be substantially improved? We had a bunch of those kind of brainstorming sessions, and I couldn't see any fundamental obstacle to improving the cost of rockets. So that's when I started SpaceX.
Elon was newly rich and needed something to do with his time. He had always loved space, and so he wanted to find out when NASA was going to go to Mars. What he found out is that they weren't, and that the reason that they weren't was that it was too expensive. This really disappointed Elon, so he started to do some research and found out that he could produce his own rockets for about 3% the cost that the governments were currently producing them for. So Elon did what he had always done, and he got to work.
That's really why I started SpaceX. What I'm trying to do is to make a significant difference in spaceflight and help make spaceflight accessible to almost anyone.
How did you get the expertise to be the chief technology officer of a rocket ship company?
Well, I do have a physics background. That's helpful as a foundation. And then I read a lot of books and talked to a lot of smart people.
You're self-taught?
Yeah.
But everything didn't really work out great for Elon and SpaceX. The first 3 launch attempts ended catastrophically, and Elon himself said that if the 4th launch attempt would not have worked out, the company would not have been able to afford a 5th launch and would have died.
Neil Armstrong, Gene Cernan have both testified against commercial spaceflight and the way that you're developing it.
I was very sad to see that because those guys are, those guys are heroes of mine, so it's really tough. I wish they would come and visit and see the hardware that we're doing here. And I think that would change their mind.
They inspired you to do this, didn't they?
Yes.
And to see them casting stones in your direction.
It's difficult.
When you had that 3rd failure in a row, did you think, I need to pack this in?
Never.
Why not?
I don't ever give up. I mean, I'd have to be dead or completely incapacitated.
Perfect.
If that 4th launch hadn't worked, that would have been it. We would have not had the resources to mount a 5th.
You couldn't have gone out at that point.
Yes, death would have been, I think, inevitable because we did not have the resources to mount a 5th launch.
It's important to get a self-sustaining base, ideally on Mars, because Mars is far enough away from Earth that a war on Earth, the Mars base might survive. It's more likely to survive than a moon base. But I think a moon base and a Mars base that could perhaps help regenerate life back here on Earth would be really important, and to get that done before a possible World War III.
In the history of spaceflight, only 4 entities have launched a spacecraft into space and successfully brought it back down onto Earth: the United States, Russia, China, and Elon Musk. Today, SpaceX is worth an estimated $350 billion and is being relied on by even the U.S. government to save its own astronauts that NASA cannot help that are stuck in the International Space Station right now. In February of 2004, Elon would get involved with what would turn out to be his most successful venture ever, and what you most likely know him for, the Tesla Motor Company. Now, contrary to what most people believe, he actually did not start the company. It was actually started by 2 entrepreneurs, Martin Eberhard and Mark Tapperding, in 2003, and Elon joined shortly after.
It's a very serious issue, and it's something that we have to address, and the only way to address that is to come up with a car that doesn't add carbon emissions to the environment, and I think the way to do that is with electric vehicles.
It hasn't always been uphill for Tesla, though. In 2008, the global financial crisis struck the entire world, sending some of even the most seasoned investors into bankruptcy, and Elon Musk and Tesla got extremely close to having to file bankruptcy.
2008 is not a good time to be a car company, especially a startup car company, and especially an electric car company. That was like stupidity squared.
In fact, at the end of 2008, we were only a few days from bankruptcy. Literally 2 days, or 3 days maybe.
But they managed to make it out alive, and the EV car market has done nothing but go through the roof since then. And with Tesla controlling over 70% of the EV market in the United States for a while, it has made Tesla one of the biggest companies in the world with a market cap of $1.2 trillion, and Elon Musk the richest man in the world with almost double the person in second place. In April of 2022, almost 20 years after he sold PayPal, Elon Musk bought Twitter for $44 billion in what most people described as a hostile takeover.
What was it ultimately that led you to make the decision to do it?
I mean, this is going to sound somewhat melodramatic, but I was worried about that it was having a corrosive effect on civilization. That it was just having a bad impact.
Elon Musk took over and started changing things immediately. He changed the name to X, fired the CEO, and turned around and fired half of the workforce. Musk also started unbanning accounts that he felt had been unjustly banned, most notably being President Donald Trump, who he seems to have become very close friends with over the last couple of years, and who he undeniably helped get elected in the last year's election. The richest man in the world rubbing shoulders with the most powerful man in the world can be a very dangerous combination for the other side. Since taking over Twitter, Elon has significantly ramped up monetization in a hope to try to make Twitter profitable, really to no avail. The revenue has dropped 46.4%, showing that maybe for once everything that Elon Musk touches doesn't turn to gold. But it also seems like he doesn't care all that much.
Don't advertise.
You don't want them to advertise?
No.
What do you mean?
If somebody's going to try to blackmail me with advertising, blackmail me with money, go f yourself.
But
go f yourself. Is that clear? I hope it is. Hey, Bob, if you're in the audience.
And that is an understandable response. What does the richest man in the world care about a little more money? With his net worth sitting at $415 billion and growing, he is on track to be the world's first trillionaire in 2027. So at 53 years old, richest and most successful man in the world, friends with the President of the United States and the majority of the world waiting to see what he is going to do next, I guess the only thing left for Elon to do is get us to Mars.